She was named after Britain's greatest naval hero, armed with the biggest guns ever mounted on a Royal Navy warship, and shaped by the very treaty meant to prevent another world war. HMS Nelson was powerful, controversial and battle-hardened. From Atlantic patrols to the shores of Normandy and the surrender of Japanese forces in Southeast Asia, this battleship left her mark on every theatre she sailed. This is the story of HMS Nelson. HMS Nelson was the lead ship of the Nelson-class battleships. Along with her sister HMS Rodney, she was designed under the constraints of the 1922 Washington Naval Treaty. The treaty limited battleship displacement to 35,000 tons and guns to 16 inches. Nelson met both, just barely. Essentially a downsized G3 battlecruiser, a class of British capital ships planned in the early 1920s that would have carried 16-inch guns and reached speeds of 32 knots, but were cancelled under the Washington Naval Treaty, Nelson was 709 feet long overall, with a beam of 106 feet and a draft of 30 feet. She displaced 33,300 tons at standard load, rising to nearly 38,000 tons fully loaded. Her two Brown Curtis geared steam turbines could produce 45,000 shaft horsepower, propelling her to a top speed of just over 23 knots. With a range of 7,000 nautical miles, she was built for transoceanic operations. Uniquely, all three of her 16-inch gun turrets were placed forward of the superstructure, a radical departure from previous designs. This layout, along with her high freeboard and blocky silhouette, led to many nicknames: Nelsol, the Queen's Mansions, and even the Ugly Sisters. Nelson's main battery consisted of 9 16-inch breech-loading guns, arranged in 3 triple turrets, designated A, B and C. All of these massive turrets were placed forward of the superstructure, a highly unconventional layout for the time, with turret B situated above and behind turret A in a super-firing position. This concentration of firepower at the bow maximised the forward arc of fire, and was a direct consequence of treaty limitations, aiming to save weight and space. For her secondary battery, Nelson was equipped with 12 breech-loading 6-inch Mark 12 guns, mounted in twin turrets aft, with 3 turrets on each side of the ship. These guns were intended for engaging smaller warships, and their location provided coverage to the rear sectors not addressed by the forward-facing main guns. The combination of these batteries gave Nelson substantial flexibility in combat scenarios, from ship-to-ship duels to convoy defence and shore bombardment. Her original anti-aircraft fit included 6 unshielded 4.7-inch guns and 8 single 2-pounder mounts, providing only modest defence against aerial threats. As air power became an increasingly dominant force during the Second World War, these early systems were quickly deemed inadequate, prompting a series of substantial upgrades throughout her service life. Over the years, HMS Nelson received a comprehensive array of enhanced anti-aircraft weaponry, reflecting the changing nature of naval warfare. These included the addition of numerous Oerlikon 20mm cannons, which were effective at close range against low-flying aircraft, and the iconic multi-barreled pom-pom mounts, which offered a dense wall of fire. Later modifications incorporated advanced quadruple Bofors 40mm mounts, further bolstering her defensive capability. By the end of the war, she bristled with over 60 anti-aircraft guns of varying calibers and configurations, forming an impressive and formidable shield against the ever-present threat from the skies. For torpedoes, she was equipped with a pair of submerged 24.5-inch tubes, one per side, designed to launch heavyweight torpedoes that could inflict serious damage on enemy capital ships. While rarely used in combat, their presence reflected interwar naval doctrine, which still considered torpedo attacks from battleships a potential tactic. Fire control aboard HMS Nelson was notably advanced for its era. She was fitted with multiple director control towers, each equipped with rangefinders to enhance targeting accuracy. The main gun directors included 15-foot and 41-foot rangefinders, while secondary batteries were controlled by separate systems with 12-foot rangefinders. As the war progressed, Nelson received an array of radar installations, greatly improving her gunnery precision in poor visibility or at long range. This suite of fire control technology ensured that Nelson remained combat effective, despite rapid advances in naval warfare. Laid down on the 28th of December 1922 at Armstrong Whitworth Shipyard in Newcastle upon Tyne, HMS Nelson represented a bold step in British battleship design under the constraints of international naval treaties. She was launched on the 3rd of September 1925 amid significant interest, marking a milestone in British naval construction. After completing her sea trials and final fitting out, she was officially commissioned into the Royal Navy on the 15th of August 1927, at a staggering cost of over £7.5 million. An enormous sum at the time, equivalent to over $500 million in today's money, reflecting her cutting-edge design and formidable armament. Nelson was the third vessel to carry the storied name in Royal Navy history, a tribute to Admiral Horatio Nelson. She quickly assumed the role of flagship of the Atlantic Fleet, where she became a visible symbol of Britain's naval might. Her unique layout and towering superstructure gave her a distinctive presence at sea, and made her an object of both admiration and critique within naval circles. Her early years were not without drama. She grounded off Southsea in 1934 while departing for a fleet cruise, requiring the removal of supplies and careful tidal timing to refloat her. Earlier, in 1931, she collided with a merchant ship in thick fog off the Spanish coast near Cape Gulano. Although the damage was minor, the incident underscored the navigational challenges of the era. Most notably that same year, her crew played a central role in the Invergordon Mutiny, refusing to set sail in protest of proposed pay cuts amidst the global depression. A rare act of defiance that sent shockwaves through the Admiralty. Despite these early setbacks and controversies, Nelson's stature remained undiminished. Her presence at fleet reviews such as King George V's Silver Jubilee and King George VI's Coronation Review reaffirmed her symbolic and strategic value. Through training cruises, diplomatic visits and exercises, she steadily carved her place as the centrepiece of British naval strength in the interwar years, a role she would carry into the crucible of the Second World War. When war broke out in 1939, Nelson was immediately pressed into active service, assigned to hunt German blockade runners attempting to slip through the North Atlantic. These missions were critical to maintaining Britain's economic lifeline, as the Kriegsmarine sought to disrupt vital supply lines. Nelson also escorted convoys from Norway, braving the harsh conditions of the northern seas and the constant threat of enemy submarines and aircraft. On the 30th of October, as she patrolled the stormy and dangerous waters of the North Atlantic, carrying out her convoy escort duties and maintaining a visible presence to deter German surface raiders, she almost met with disaster when the German submarine U-56 targeted her near the Orkney Islands. The U-boat fired 3 torpedoes from close range, 2 of which struck Nelson, but failed to detonate due to faulty fuses. A stroke of luck that likely spared the battleship from serious damage, or even sinking. During this period, Nelson also participated in the unsuccessful pursuit of the German battleships Scharnhorst and Gneisenau, following their attack on British merchant vessels. Though the enemy escaped, Nelson's involvement underscored her role in Britain's strategic response to the German surface threat. Her wartime duties were abruptly interrupted on the 4th of December 1939, when she struck a powerful magnetic mine laid by German submarine U-31 at the entrance to Loch Ewe in Scotland. The explosion tore a 10 by 6 foot hole in her hull near A turret, flooding the forward compartments and causing her to list slightly and trim forward. Although no lives were lost, 74 crew members were injured, and the ship was forced to undergo extensive repairs. She was taken to His Majesty's Dockyard, Portsmouth, and remained out of action until August of 1940, depriving the Royal Navy of one of its most formidable capital ships during a critical phase of the war. In September 1941, while operating off the coast of Gibraltar as part of a high-risk Malta convoy operation, HMS Nelson came under coordinated aerial attack from Italian SM-84 torpedo bombers. During the assault, a torpedo successfully penetrated the screen and struck the forward section of the battleship, tearing a massive hole in her bow. The blast caused significant flooding in the forward compartments, including damage to the torpedo room and adjacent bulkheads, and drastically reduced her operational speed. Despite the structural damage and challenging conditions, Nelson's crew acted swiftly to contain the flooding, reinforce internal bulkheads, and keep the ship seaworthy. Maintaining her station in the fleet, she concealed her vulnerability from enemy reconnaissance, a calculated act of deception intended to prevent further Axis aggression. Nelson played a key role in Operation Torch, providing heavy naval gunfire support and strategic presence during the Allied landings of North Africa in November 1942. Her main guns helped to suppress Vichy French coastal defences and deter potential intervention from Axis naval forces. As the flagship of Force H under Vice Admiral Edward Seffray, Nelson also played a vital role in overseeing naval operations during the campaign, ensuring that the landings proceeded with minimal interference from sea-based threats. Following Operation Torch, she was reassigned to support Operation Husky, the invasion of Sicily in July 1943. Nelson patrolled alongside other Royal Navy and Allied capital ships in the Ionian Sea, providing both firepower and deterrence against the Italian fleet. During Operation Baytown and Operation Avalanche, the invasions of mainland Italy, Nelson once again unleashed her 16-inch guns, bombarding shore batteries and providing crucial support to advancing Allied forces. Her use of main battery guns in anti-aircraft barrage fire also showcased the flexibility of her armament in multi-role warfare. Perhaps most symbolically, HMS Nelson hosted the formal signing of the Italian armistice aboard her decks on 29 September 1943. Marshal Pietro Badoglio, on behalf of the Italian government, signed the surrender documents in the presence of General Dwight Eisenhower, sealing Italy's exit from the Axis powers. This moment cemented Nelson's place not only in naval history but also in the broader narrative of Allied diplomatic and military success. During the Normandy landings in June 1944, HMS Nelson once again brought her formidable firepower to bear, bombarding German coastal defences in support of the Allied invasion. Her massive 16-inch guns provided critical naval gunfire support, targeting enemy fortifications and artillery positions with devastating effect as Allied forces stormed ashore. However, on the 18th of June, disaster struck. Nelson hit 2 naval mines in quick succession while manoeuvring off the coast of Normandy. The explosions caused serious damage to her hull, breaching compartments and necessitating immediate action to stabilise the ship. Temporary patches were made to prevent further flooding, allowing her to limp away from the combat zone under her own power. Given the severity of the damage and the need for comprehensive structural repairs, Nelson was sent across the Atlantic to the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard in the United States. There, she underwent extensive repairs to restore her seaworthiness and combat readiness. The episode marked one of the last major trials in her wartime career and highlighted the inherent risks faced by even the most powerful ships in mine-laden waters. She returned in 1945 and joined the Eastern Fleet in Ceylon, where she resumed duties as a flagship during the closing months of the war. Nelson's presence in the Indian Ocean underscored the Royal Navy's commitment to the final defeat of Japan and helped solidify Allied control over vital shipping routes in the region. Her massive guns, although no longer called upon for bombardment, remained a powerful symbol of British maritime strength. On the 2nd of September 1945, a moment of profound historical significance unfolded aboard her decks in Georgetown, Penang. It was there that Japanese forces in Malaya formally surrendered to the Allies. This surrender ceremony, held with great formality, included senior British and Allied officers and marked the beginning of the end of Japanese occupation in the region. Just 10 days later, HMS Nelson again bore witness to history when she was present at the broader surrender of all Japanese forces in Southeast Asia, conducted in Singapore. These events sealed Nelson's legacy not only as a warship of immense power, but also as a venue for the formal close of a brutal chapter in world history. After the war, Nelson was briefly reinstated as the flagship of the home fleet, reaffirming her status within the post-war Royal Navy during a time of reorganisation and demobilisation. However, the end of global hostilities also marked the beginning of a new chapter in her career. In 1946, she was converted into a training ship, offering new generations of sailors the opportunity to learn seamanship, gunnery, and naval procedures aboard a storied battleship. She served in this educational capacity for just over a year, contributing quietly to the peacetime fleet before being officially placed into reserve at Rosyth in October of 1947. Nelson's final duty was a sobering one. Selected as a target ship for aerial bomb tests, she participated in experimental trials designed to assess the effectiveness of 2,000-pound armour-piercing bombs against battleship-grade protection. From June to September of 1948, these tests were conducted with scientific precision to gather data on blast effects, penetration, and structural resilience. The trials marked a transition in naval warfare, foreshadowing the obsolescence of heavily armoured warships in the face of modern aerial munitions. With her data-gathering role complete, Nelson was formally handed over for scrapping in January 1949. She arrived at the shipbreaking yard in Inverkeithing in March of that year, bringing to an end the life of one of Britain's most unique and iconic battleships. HMS Nelson was a product of compromise, shaped by treaties and diplomacy, but forged in war. From Atlantic convoy escort to Mediterranean bombardments, and finally witnessing the end of Japan's empire, she was more than just steel and firepower. Though her silhouette was never elegant, and her design was often criticised, Nelson proved resilient, powerful, and ultimately indispensable. She was the embodiment of interwar innovation and wartime adaptation, and remains one of the most distinctive battleships in Royal Navy history. Thanks very much for watching. Please take a moment to hit the like button and consider subscribing.